Afternoon. Tip of the hat to yas. Welcome. We're here for our weekly romance oracle message, and boom, same card from last week is the seed level of our reading this week. We've got the cat. This wasn't necessarily our first card last week, but I felt it was a major presence. We have independence and healthy boundaries. And I think that the key to really connecting with, attracting, magnetizing, drawing in, vibrationally, resonating with, meriting your soulmate starts with you becoming the most authentic, real, undiluted version of your true self. Because before that point, you can attract suitors and options and romantic possibilities and, different kinds of relationships. But if you're really wanting that like true yolk to yolk partner, it really is an inside job. And you can get on every app and go to the farmer's market every day and do all the things and go to a cocktail hour every night and go to the pottery class and join a book club, and you will still meet the same types of people that will keep you circulating through these sort of educational level relationships. And so in Kabbalah, they describe like different levels of relationship. And the first level is called first mates. And that is just when you are sort of superficially dating, getting to know people. You haven't decided to sort of take it deeper, get to know them better, start spending more time together, right? This is the most casual form of dating. And it doesn't have to do with necessarily how old you are. It's just what season of your life are you in? What are your intentions? What are you looking for in the moment? So then there's first mate relationships. Then there are practice mate relationships. And that's kind of the next phase when you start seeing someone and you're getting to know them more, you're spending more time with them, and you're beginning to get into relationship skills at that point. And you are kind of taking a temperature of how well you're doing at your relationship skills, because this is the threshold that determines whether a person is going to want to continue on with you and in an official sense, in a long-term way, and see where you can grow from there. And so I think that you are kind of testing the grounds, right? Testing your own relationship skills and your own emotional intelligence and your relational intelligence in those practice mate relationships. Those are, beyond casual dating, but I would say they're like those like 1-year relationships. And even, it's not even a matter of duration. Like there are relationships that people have for years on end that are very like in and out, they have like affection and they have feelings and there's chemistry, but there's not like depth. There's no like long-term intention, but you are kind of working with your relationship skills in those relationships. So a little bit deeper, a little bit more intention, like you like the person enough to keep them around, but maybe you're not going deep, maybe you're not taking it long term, that kind of thing. And so then there are what is called tikkun mates. And, I take it back, because practice mate could be even like a 3-year relationship with someone that you have that you never go deep with, right? You have a nice relationship. Maybe it ends poorly or it just expires, but you guys don't really like bring out your real issues, right? Maybe it's just a very comfortable person to be with and it runs its course, right? So that's another form of practice mate. Now you get into tikkun mate. And that is where, like in the more new age communities, they might call that a platonic relationship, where it gets pretty intense. And tikkun mate, if you've been on this channel, you've heard me use the words the word term tikkun. Tikkun is like all the stuff in our soul that is like the assignments that we came to work on. And so these are going to be bringing out, like, enhancing our talents and our greatness, but as well as reintegrating our shadow aspects and refining and transcending our animal impulses, our ego, all of that stuff. So we have certain themes that we go through in our life. And so some people really bring out those parts of us that are insecure or anxiously attached or wary or untrusting, or that make us the ones that are avoidant, right? Wherever you fall in the spectrum, it's someone who sort of gives you a flare up in your emotional and spiritual issues. But they're those people that we don't want to leave. It's just like, you can't live with them, can't live without them kind of thing. So those tikkun relationships, those go deeper, and they may last any duration of time. They may be brief, they may be long term, but those are going to get deep at the heart of your issues and your assignments. And those relationships can either be kind of catastrophic and cause a lot more damage if you're not aware, if you're not awakened, if you're not conscious, or they can be invitations to, like, witness, oh, this is coming up in me and I need to address this. Something needs to be healed. Something needs to be repaired. Something needs to be refined, right? And sometimes it's a signal that you've entered into a relationship with a person that you really shouldn't be with, and that you had lack of boundaries. And so it teaches you how to walk away, how to be independent. Some relationships teach you how to endure the discomfort and be willing to look at yourself and not be hard-headed. But it takes discernment, and it takes honesty, and we can't change other people. We have to change ourselves. And if the person that we're with is so toxic that we're wanting to change them and they're not livable, then that's not the person that we should probably continue with. Maybe the lesson here is to leave. Because I remember in my last relationship that I was in, I was very unclear about whether it was the tikkun that I needed to double down and stay in the relationship, or whether it was just a very toxic and negative relationship that I needed to leave. And so I really was torn. I didn't know what the truth was, because, in all honesty, I had been questioning, like, surely this isn't my soulmate. Surely this isn't the rest of my life, as good as it's going to get. Like, it wasn't fulfilling. It didn't seem like that person was growing with me in the same way. And so, and I didn't know how inflamed, he had me. And so, I kept doing the inner work and praying about it. And eventually the relationship imploded. And just moments before I could get the words out myself, he decided to go on and pull the plug. So I have no doubt about that was resolved. And so if you are ever like, I'm really uncertain about this, if you're not in danger, right? If you're not in mortal danger, then, give it some space and pray about it, and keep continuing to double down on your own inner work. And if you are in danger, you need to reach out to get help, to help you in a safe way plan your exit strategy. Because a lot of times in abusive relationships, if you tell someone you're going to leave them, that's when it gets really violent and it can get really problematic. So the cat. Okay. And so after the tikkun mates, and those relationships, I'm not sure are so permanent, right? But you never know. I mean, there's always an exception to the rule. I don't know if anybody could stay in that kind of environment unless both people have, like, the growth and the transcendence to reveal their higher soul together, and then they can become soulmates. Now, the last phase of relationship, the highest form of a relationship, is a soulmate relationship. And in this relationship, both people are whole, and they can stand on their own 2 feet, and they have both done about the same work on themselves. They stand shoulder to shoulder. They're equally yoked, and they both want to be together. And they bring out the true essence of each other and enhance that. They don't try to change someone to mold them into their ideal. Does that make sense? They bring out what that person already has within them. And their being together enhances both of them. They don't need in order to be whole, but because of their together, they're brought better. They're made into like a higher form than they would be alone. And the goodness of their relationship usually spills out into the world around them. And a lot of times they might have a shared mission, or they have a shared worldview that helps them feel supported, and they support one another. And that's usually what helps them, take actions of sharing that benefit others, not just their own unit, not just their own family. And so their goodness and their love starts to become contagious. But in order to circling back to Kat, in order to attract that level of a relationship, as you can see, all the stages are kind of developing you as a person and as a partner. And part of becoming a really good partner is learning how to be coming from a place of independence and healthy boundaries, but not so much so that you can't let someone in, or that you can't evolve your life to include someone else, right? You don't want to be hyper independent, but you want to learn interdependence. You want to go from independent to interdependent when you start working someone into your life. So if we are single right now, then the embracing of independence, enjoying our own company, kind of going at life as if you're not waiting for anybody to like come and join it to do something, right? If you want dreams, start pursuing them. Don't wait for the other person so that you're complete and then you can do it together. Just go about your business. Today I went to the farmer's market and I got purple heirloom tomatoes, and they're all like the size of my face, and they're so tender and juicy. And I got peaches, and I'm going to make a tomato and peach caprese salad because I've got sweet basil and lemon basil growing in my garden right now. So I'm excited about that. And so, that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like, have a romantic day on your own, and being so in your vibe, so in your essence, like eventually your signal will become really stable. Because like, say I was a pick-me girl and I was like completely centered around finding a partner, and I wanted to bend and mold myself to be the ideal choice. And so I started suppressing my nature, right? I started thinking, well, guys aren't going to really get my whole thing, and I'm going to be too weird. I'm not going to be commercially acceptable. I'm not the person that's, easy to take home to the family or to whatever, because, there's just controversial things about my practices and beliefs to people. So, I feel like it would be very tempting for me to try to be more cultivated and palatable, more like a tulip rather than a wild rose bush, right? And I would be attracting then the wrong kind of partner, because then I would be attracting someone who was more conservative and traditional than I had the patience and taste to be around. You know what I mean? So also, when you're trying to pretend to be something that you're not, you're not able to maintain that base level of vibration because it's not your natural base state. You're trying to put on a facade, and so your frequency is all over the place. Whereas if you find your true native frequency and you're relaxed in that and comfortable in that skin, then it's going to be consistent. So it's like sending out a strong radio signal that's easy to pick up rather than a weak radio signal that's cutting in and out. All right, what do we have here? The Fire Fairy, creative action and optimism. I love this. So this makes me feel like I've been researching this first official edition of the Secret Teachings, and it's taking me into sort of a labyrinth of overlaps and contradictions depending on where I'm sourcing my articles from. So I've been deep into the rabbit hole there, but it's been really, really fun, and I'm really passionate about it, and it's really exciting. And so it does take a lot of effort though, and it takes a lot of discipline. So this week, you guys might have noticed that I've been able to get my videos done during the day. And so the next step is go to bed early. Well, wouldn't you know, the adversary would play tricks with my phone. Even though I went through the motions of turning on my little like couch nap, I've fallen asleep watching the episode kind of alarm to wake me up to go to bed, it like totally didn't set. And so the last couple of nights, or a couple of nights this week, I accidentally fell asleep and got poor sleep on the couch. And then I was tempted to not get up as early, or even like I did get up early, but then the next night I did, like a couple of nights later, I did that again. I was too tired. So then I slept a little later, but I still pushed myself through the day to make sure to stay focused and to get the important things done, to try to stay on this path. And so if whatever you're doing, if you are making positive changes and you are like making progress, don't be surprised if the adversary tries to trip you up, to throw water on your fire, right? But I think that the more we exert discipline to overcome our former self and expand beyond our comfort zone, I think that doesn't wear us out. But I think it really excites us and gives us more confidence and emboldens us more to do more, because it's so satisfying. All week long, it just feels so good. It's such a relief. It's so satisfying. And eventually that makes more space in my day to take on this new work that feels, very important, if not even more important in some ways than we're doing here. But it's interesting, I started wondering that myself, and then the answers came to me through my Kabbalah classes this week, my Kabbalah studies. But they were talking about how for the general public to learn the deep wisdom secrets of Kabbalah, it might not be helpful. In fact, it could be harmful for them if they weren't ready to adopt that consciousness into transformation. It would just end up bringing them chaos, because it's like they invited the process in, but they're not self-aware within the process, and then the process is happening to them and they're like, why is everything suddenly going haywire? And it's because they're revealing light that they aren't earning, right? It's like putting stuff on a spiritual credit card. So the general, but they're like, we need to start awakening people into the deeper wisdom. So how do we do that? And it's like, for the general public, you can start introducing ideas and practices and things in ways that are easily digestible and kind of introduce people into the topics and make them want to go deeper and penetrate deeper. But then you put things in sort of a more tucked away place that are going into deeper secrets and more serious study. And so those things that I'm working on are in the Secret Teachings Substack, and the general wisdom and knowledge is still here every day on a daily basis, right? We get general concepts and we prepare the ground to be able to understand deeper. But I'm not just giving away value that requires, like, I'm not casting pearls before swine, if that makes sense. Not to call you guys swine, but it's different when you're just passively entertaining yourself with spiritual videos. It's totally different when you commit to a curriculum or a class that you keep showing up for, and then you take those concepts and you're actually trying to change and transform through them. It's a completely different ballgame after that. So, but it takes creative action, right? And optimism in order to do that. And I think one of the challenges this week has been to maintain that optimism when things are growing stale. And I was talking to my friend about this at work, and he was like, oh, I need to be doing something creative like that. And I was like, honestly, like, making the creative things is wonderful, but being a content creator, continuously pumping out content, is a grind. And if you don't if you're not on fire about what you're doing, then there's no, like, just do it for fun and, whatever. It doesn't really matter, because it's not, it gets old after a while, just the constant grind. And I pointed out that I was like, in fact, lately I've just been like, oh, just the constant having to share the content because it doesn't get out there on its own it's just really tiring and wearing me down. But I was like, but this is actually the first time in 10-15 years that I'm truly doing this for the light of the Creator, and not just because it's fulfilling to me or validating or I feel like I'm bringing something to help. It's like it's the first time it's like I'm getting out of my ego. I could completely surrender it and let it go at this point. If I didn't feel like God wanted me here, like that's kind of the thing that's keeping me here, and so that's how I know, okay, this isn't about me. My ego is out of the way, and now this is the first time that it's actually sharing. So if you have something like that in your life where you're like, man, it's just this is a long time passion, but I'm really it's just like I'm growing wary and weary, and it's not it doesn't have the luster it used to. If it's something that you are like, but I can't give it up, it's not for me, but there's something about this that I feel like it's sharing something to the world or to humanity, or there's some purpose in it that it serves beyond me, it's greater than myself, that I don't quite know how to put words on, but I can feel it, right? Maybe that's a call to reinvigorate yourself with just applying more discipline and taking more creative action and kind of getting over the hump of the ennui. Because just like anything in life, when we spend a lot of time doing something, there are certain things that just become more and more interesting over time, but parts of them are just going to grow stale. And so that's kind of where you have to just be more mature and have more perseverance. But then it also takes discernment, because sometimes life is telling you this chapter has come to a conclusion and it doesn't really have any more to give you. And so then you have to be really honest in your evaluation of like, what do we have here? What's the situation really? Focus. Yep. See, it's like kind of like, all right, put your blinders on. And two, another thing that we've been talking about is just pruning like away the parts of your day, life, schedule, spending, whatever it is that's draining you of your resources. And that's kind of leaking energy out. Every little tiny decision and choice we make takes chemicals that wear down our willpower. And the President Obama used to have someone pick out his clothes every day. So that was one less thing that he had to spend that kind of brain chemistry on making those choices, right? And so I think that it's good to go through our kind of routine and say, okay, am I just leaking energy when I do this? Am I just burning precious daylight hours that aren't yielding me any true fulfillment or satisfaction and aren't growing me any? Where can I trim back in those areas that are going to give me more energy to put towards what matters to me the most? What's the most interesting? Like if I had sort of slept too late today and got distracted doom scrolling, then I may not have felt like I had enough time to drive across, not exactly across town, but it's on the other side of downtown, to go to the farmer's market, right? So even just things that truly, fulfill you are getting pushed to the back because you have like other things that are just in the way that are just habit, right? Or just proximity. And then we have the spider. Ooh, what do we have here? Creative projects. Wow. So for a manifestation message, oh no, we are in the romance message, right? So sometimes I get crossed over back and forth with those because we did that last week. But either way, I think that when we get into our passions and who we really are, then that attracts people in. And maybe we meet people through our creative projects. Maybe that is the thing that starts to woo in our soulmate, but also too, maybe starting to be creative about how you're meeting people and how you're going about it. And maybe taking creative projects out into places where you would normally be working on them in isolation as well. But somebody might be attracted to you because of this activity that you're doing, or this project that you have, or this passion that you have, because they might share it as well. So I think too, when you take into consideration that we're like, okay, what do we need to do about our love lives? And it's like independence and boundaries and focus. And then the rest of the cards are like creative action and optimism and creative projects. To me, that says this probably isn't the week to go out obsessing over spending time scrolling through the apps or focused on meeting someone, but rather getting really into what you are passionate about and putting energy and into that. And then that will actually enhance your magnetism. But this might be a window of time too, where the planets are just aligned, where the most benefit that we can get in a long time goal or desire is under a lot of benefic energy right now. So we should utilize that, and we should grab it all up. All right, so let's review. We have independence, the cat, boundaries. We have the fire fairy, which is creative action and optimism. We have focus. Keep your eyes on the path, on each step. When I'm out there walking the paths in the forest back there, I have to watch my step because there's all those little beech tree things. They call them witch butts, but they're those spiky balls that are like the seed things that fall. And I mean, you could step on one and roll an ankle, right? So you got to watch your step and keep your focus on your creative projects. Don't lose momentum. Don't lose steam, right? It's so funny because true, if I went back in time and met my adolescent self again, well, I mean, I met her the first time I was there, but if I went back in time and gave my younger self any advice, it would be, don't make the central focus of your life finding love and a boyfriend. It would be focus on your dreams, and people who are in alignment with that will show up on the path along the way. But don't abandon your own dreams and your own gifts and your own talents in order to go chase love. And that was one of the lifelong lessons that I've had to learn as an Aries sun, Libra rising with a Cancer moon. I am all about relationships and intimate partnership and emotional bonding and passion, and that has been my central focus for a lot of it. And for some people, like, their dream is to be, a wife and a mother, and that's their goal. But that might be their calling, right? But I think for me, I had a different calling and different things that I needed to reveal in life. And I think that it's been a long journey of being able to put myself and my calling and my own passions in the central focus, and trust that those other things will come if I'm not obsessing, right? You don't want to become... you don't want to ignore areas of your life that are important to you, but you can surrender your grip of control over them and, shift your focus every once in a while so that that's not taking up all your obsession. Because even like me and some of the girls were talking at work, and one of the girls mentioned, she was like, kind of talking about like going out and running errands and going to the farmer's market. And she was like, I need to like stop doing all my activities based on the fact that I think I might meet someone there. And I was like, you nailed it. Because then there's like not this natural flow of just being in your element, but there's like an agenda underneath it, even though it's practical and, but it becomes like your number one obsession rather than just something that you consider, right? So I think that today was a good example of, I didn't get up thinking I should go to the farmer's market. Maybe I'll meet someone. But I got up and thought, I really want to go get those heirloom tomatoes. I want those peaches. I might as well look decently cute when I go, kind of thing. All right, you all, that is all for tonight. We will be back together tomorrow for our weekend reflection message, where we will kind of be taking into account all of the lessons of the week and giving ourselves something to think about as we integrate all of that knowledge over the weekend. All right, ciao.